Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Quijano. It is good to be with you. Thanks for joining us. Worsening COVID numbers are bringing renewed concerns for the Biden administration, with a tripling of new U.S. cases in recent days. Here's how White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki laid out the administration's concerns about the virus's spread.
There was a CBS poll that showed that vaccinated people in the country are more fearful about the Delta variant than unvaccinated people. That's clearly concerning to us because unvaccinated people should be more fearful. And what the president wanted to convey to people in the country is the impact and effect of getting vaccinated. So we also know statistically that 97% of hospitalizations are for people who are unvaccinated. And that the vast majority of cases are asymptomatic. There's still research about a range of components of the impacts of COVID over the long term, which our health and medical leaders will advise us on. They also have not changed their guidance on masks. That is not a determination that's being made from a political standpoint or from anyone in the White House.
The rapidly spreading Delta variant has the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention considering whether a third booster dose of the vaccine is necessary. Their meeting Thursday also focused on the new questions about an extremely rare but serious illness potentially linked to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. More on that in a moment. But first, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she's open to adding members to her Capitol riot investigation committee. She rejected 2 of the 5 Republicans proposed by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. But Pelosi says she's concerned more Republicans may not be willing to join the probe. She and the Minority Leader continued to attack one another over the aims of the investigation Thursday.
We're there to seek the truth. We're there to get the truth, not to get Trump. TRU, truth. Trump. That seems to be what the other side is obsessed with. So as the legislation allows, I did not accept 2 of the 5 people were appointed. They have made statements and taken actions that I think would impact the integrity of the commission, of the committee, the work of the committee. This is deadly serious. This is about our Constitution. It's about our country. It's an assault on the Capitol that is being mischaracterized for some reason at the expense of finding the truth for the American people.
This is a sham committee that's just politically driven by Speaker Pelosi. When we proposed to do a commission back in January, she said no, she just wanted to make it political. When we responded back to her, she waited 10 weeks to say anything else. I don't think anybody in America, I think even your viewers understand what a sham this committee is and how politically driven.
Finally, a day after Republican senators blocked a vote to advance a bipartisan infrastructure deal, one of the negotiators tells us there is a new deadline. For more, let's bring in Nikole Killion, Eugene Scott, and Oma Seddiq. Nikole is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Eugene is a national political reporter for The Washington Post. And Oma is a politics reporter for Insider. Welcome to you all. Nikole, let me start with you. As we heard, Republicans are attacking the House Select Committee as partisan. Who else might be involved in their newly announced investigation?
Well, that remains to be seen, and, they haven't officially launched anything as of yet. That is something that Leader McCarthy threw out there saying, hey, we're going to move forward on our own if Speaker Pelosi isn't going to accept my picks. There's still, a little bit of back and forth from the standpoint that Speaker Pelosi may be considering other Republicans for the panel, although it seems if she does do that she might pick them herself as opposed to deferring or consulting with the Minority Leader. But look, if Republicans go this alone, they have made clear that they believe the scope of this investigation should be broadened beyond just the events of what happened on January 6th. They want to look at the run-up, what happened, in the months leading up to the attack, including those protests that we saw over the summer, which were of a different nature, but they feel that that is something that potentially should be included. And they also have concerns, just as Democrats do, about some of the basic security failures that occurred that day. So, again, again, TBD if they decide to move forward as far as going it alone. I think as of now, Democrats on the current select committee have made clear that they intend to move forward. They have a hearing next week, and even the chair, Chair Benny Thompson, told reporters earlier today he's still hopeful that they can seat a full committee of 13 members, but for now, their intent is to go forward with or without them.
Congressman Jim Jordan was one of the two appointees House Speaker Pelosi objected to. Explain why he might still end up being a part of Democrats' investigation.
Right. So Speaker Pelosi rejected Representative Jim Jordan from the committee, which she has the authority to do so. And Kevin McCarthy was outraged by this decision, so he may still go ahead and keep him on the committee to fill out these 13 members. Speaker Pelosi has agreed to 3 of McCarthy's picks for the committee, but Representative Jim Jordan and Representative Jim Banks, as you see there, she rejected both of those considerations. She hasn't been really clear as to the reasons behind it, but she's said that the statements they've made around what happened on January 6th and around the committee have disqualified them from serving on the committee because they won't be active participants to participate in a nonpartisan investigation to seek out the truth of what happened on January 6th.
Well, Nikole, on Wednesday, we heard Congresswoman Liz Cheney stand in solidarity with Speaker Pelosi. She called Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's rhetoric about the investigation a disgrace. What are the potential political consequences of that for her?
Well, I think at this point she's really not worried about that. I think the biggest consequence already happened earlier this year when she got removed from her leadership post as the chair of the House GOP conference, and she made clear even then, as she continues to do now, that she does feel that this January 6th attack needs to be investigated, that we need to get to the facts and find out what happened. And she has condemned the actions of that day and really anyone who has propagated that big lie and kind of perpetuated this rhetoric of what happened, that this was a tourist visit. She's kind of knocked all of that down and really stood by an investigation and stood by those who defended the Capitol that day. So she remains committed to this committee going forward. I mean, could it backfire? I think at this point, like I said, she's not really concerned about that. I mean, as far as her own prospects for re-election, she's still pulling in a decent amount of cash. And also, she has been trying to advocate for getting more Republicans on this panel. If not as members of the committee, she has been advocating certainly for Republican staff to be added. In fact, just today, there was former Virginia Congressman Denver Riggleman who was on the Hill meeting with the Speaker, who is potentially under consideration as an advisor to the committee. She told reporters that she thinks he would be a tremendous asset if he were to join on. And the committee did make some other staff announcements earlier today. So, that is really her perspective. I think just, moving forward, trying to find the facts and, to the extent that more Republicans can be included in the process, she seems to be supportive of that.
All right, let's turn to infrastructure. Eugene, earlier today, Maine Senator Susan Collins had this to say about the status of infrastructure talks.
I'd say 3 or 4 issues left that need to be resolved. But I'm optimistic that by working through the weekend, we're going to be able to come up with a proposal on Monday, and that had been our goal. Now, I realize it's never over till it's over, and we could still have a monkey wrench thrown in the works, but I believe we're definitely on track and that the negotiations are going very well.
Eugene, what issues are holding up a deal, and when might we see another vote on this?
Well, the Republicans haven't been incredibly clear about that, but they have made it clear that they want to know what is in the package before they vote on whether or not to move forward. We already know that they've expressed some lack of support for issues related to climate change or universal, child care, anything related to immigration, and that's why Democrats are going to try to move forward with getting those issues addressed in a separate package. But details are still being worked out among Democrats, and including some of the Republican lawmakers who have been involved in trying to reach this compromise. But not all Republicans have been informed of what those things are. And so before this plan moves forward, we've seen GOP lawmakers say they want to have a better idea of what it is that they could eventually be voting on.
I want to ask about the pandemic, Eugene. As we learn about additional staff infections at the White House, the administration acknowledges there's still a lot to be learned about these breakthrough cases. Do you think the White House might bring back mask restrictions for vaccinated Americans?
Well, they're certainly entertaining doing so, and there is some support in the White House for doing just that, but there has not been a final conclusion reached. I think people on Biden's team understand just how unpopular these masks were and how frustrating this could be for many people who did socially distance and did wear masks and ultimately did get vaccinated, how difficult it would be to make these individuals wear masks, given that they are not the individuals most responsible for the spread. It's also worth noting that a significant percentage of these newer cases are happening in a very few states. And so imposing a national mandate may not have the effect that some people are hoping it will, in the sense that it could ultimately end up to, some individuals and communities just being more upset than helped when it comes to trying to move forward with this pandemic.
Oma, new unemployment numbers show jobless claims rose to 419,000, up from 368,000. That is the third uptick in 6 weeks. How is the White House messaging on this as it's pushing for multi-trillion-dollar proposals?
Yes, the White House is really characterizing this as on the employer's responsibility to get more people back into jobs. They've suggested, Press Secretary Jen Psaki once again reiterated today that maybe employers should consider increasing their pay to help incentivize workers to get back into the workforce, because we've seen this rapid influx of people once again getting employed, and we've also seen people just quote unquote rage quitting because they're upset with the conditions at the workplace. And so the White House has been pushing this messaging strategy to employers to help get the economy back on track. But at the same time, there is still funding in the COVID plan that passed in March that can support small businesses. So the White House is sticking to its messaging strategy on the market at the moment. So it remains to be seen whether this uptick will continue over the next coming weeks.
Eugene, the administration has publicly condemned the spread of misinformation about vaccines on social media, yet they're also facing criticism for failing to act on this earlier. What recommendations are they accused of ignoring?
Well, Biden has been accused of not being firm and direct in his pushback towards social media companies that he now and people on the left deem partly responsible for misinformation. As you know, he has been aggressively doing so recently, attacking Facebook and attracting a lot of pushback and attention from the company itself, who, of course, does not want to be blamed for the spread of this virus. And he is trying to figure out ways to challenge executives of social media companies and meet with them to say, you have to do something to have more control over what gets posted on your websites, because there have been articles supporting that not only is misinformation widespread on social media, but very often it's a handful of accounts doing a lot of the work. So this is something that it's actually quite manageable and easy to handle if social media companies are as intentional as the White House would hope they would be.
Finally, Nikole, weeks after negotiators said they had reached an agreement on a framework for police reform, we still haven't seen any specifics of a deal. What is happening? What's going on?
Well, I think that's what we all curious reporters want to know. I mean, look, when we talk to the negotiators, they say that they continue to make progress and that they remain optimistic. I mean, I just talked to Senator Tim Scott a couple of days ago, and he said that he is still optimistic and hopeful that they can come to some kind of agreement, a resolution before the August recess. But to your point, we don't have a lot of time before we hit that date. We also know that the Senate has a lot on its plate between infrastructure and also they've got to consider raising the debt limit. There's this huge reconciliation package. So there's a lot happening right now. We do know these negotiators remain committed to this issue of police reform, but they really seem stuck at the moment on, one of the key critical issues that they've been stuck on for months now, which again is this issue of qualified immunity. We know a lot of police organizations have been involved in kind of giving their 2 cents on what they would like to see. Equally, we've seen a number of civil rights organizations be very engaged and involved in these discussions, and really things did come to a head a couple of weeks ago when some of these civil rights groups felt that these law enforcement organizations had too much of a say in this legislation and in some of these drafts. And at the end of the day, they are pressing for an end of qualified immunity, but it really is hard to see how Republicans might embrace that. Equally, it's hard to see how Democrats would accept, just some type of compromise. So that is really where the disagreement lies, among other issues. But again, the negotiators continue to work on this. We do know that they had conversations earlier this week, Senators Booker and Scott. So again, as they say with almost everything here on Capitol Hill, stay tuned.
Yeah, and as I'm just seeing now, it looks like on Senator Scott's Twitter feed, there's a picture from what looks to be a very intense negotiating session where Cory Booker and Senator Scott look very focused on the documents in front of them. So more to come. The caption is looking pretty lively for a bill on quote-unquote life support. All right, Nikole Killion, Eugene Scott, and Oma Seddiq, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.